One of Logic's most powerful features is its user-defined fields. A lot of times you'll have something that isn't logged with every queue, so for instance a 1010 number or a SMRC number, contest exchanges and so forth that you wouldn't want to devote a permanent full-time field to. So this is perfect for user-defined fields. You can log literally anything that you want to. A lot of so-called user-defined fields are already set up in Logic. We'll go over this feature in more detail in a minute, but just want to move this up here where you can see it. These are user-defined fields that are already set up. And you can see we have probably just about everything you need, at least at the current time. But if new awards come out or you have some specific need for logging some other data, it's certainly available to you here. The first thing to do when setting up user-defined fields is to make sure that the field is defined in Logic's log fields table. So I'm going to Tools and Log Fields. This is the same screen where we also set up spotting and awards tracking. And I'm working with a small screen here so that the video will fit on the CD. And so I'll move everything. It looks kind of crowded here. Logic has a table that gives information about all of the fields that it uses. Not all of the fields listed here are user-defined. 1010 is user-defined, but for instance address is not. That has a dedicated place in the database for it. We can go down here to call. Hit page down. Whoops, I went past it. There it is. There's the information for the call sign. Band likewise is not user-defined. Here's call area for some for a contest. And notice that there's a mark here showing that it's user-defined. For every field that's defined in Logic, you have to give some information about that field. Let's take a look at, for instance, rig. This is already set up for you. Most people probably don't bother to log the rig they use, but quite a few people do, so we included this here just to save you some work. It's rig, it's type character. You notice we have different options if you want to store a date. Logical yes, no would put a check mark on your log form. That would be good for if you want to keep track, for instance, for YLDXCC or some other YL award. Integer stores numbers without decimal points, and float stores numbers with decimal points. And if you do a float, you have to tell it how many decimal places you want. Okay, but let me put this back the way it was. I'll just hit the undo button. By the way, if this looks familiar, it is. It operates exactly like the log form. You can type the get button to retrieve a field, or filter to search on any field. You can erase, undo, add a new record, and so forth. Let's go ahead and add a user-defined field. One that's not in Logic as of the filming of this. This is a place to store someone's web address. So we'll call it URL. It's a field name that it will be referred to by. It's going to be character. I mean, you can't, none of the other options here make sense. We'll put here website address. The edit using list table we'll go into a little later. That allows you to have a list of predetermined values. Upshift means that anything that you enter into the field will be converted to uppercase. In other words, the field won't accept lowercase. Normally you want to turn that on because, say, if you're searching for rig or antenna or something like that using the filter function, or selecting using the report writer, you don't want to have to worry about whether it might be upper or lowercase. But in the case of the URL, some servers expect lowercase characters and will not support anything else, so I want to turn off upshift. And the width, let's make it 60 characters. Whoops. Try that again. Okay, or I could have done the little spinner thing here, but that takes a long time if you need to change by more than a few numbers. There are a lot of options on the log fields form that we'll come back and discuss later, having to do with the words tracking mostly. One thing we'll talk about here is the ADIF field name. This controls whether our URL field gets imported to ADIF, whether it will import if the ADIF has a field matching, whether it gets imported or not, whether it will get exported if we do Logbook of the World or EQSL. And then this allows us to assign a different name for ADIF purposes. So for instance, right now there's no URL specification in ADIF. Everybody uses what they want to, and hopefully most people would use URL. It's the most common, but suppose it's web address. But you get an ADIF file where they put web address instead of URL. You can fill in this ADIF name. It will convert it for you. And likewise, it'll do the same conversion when you're exporting. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. Let's just close this form, get it out of the way. Let's add this new URL field back to our log form. Note that we have 5 user-defined fields displayed on this log form. This is the factory default. 4 of the 5 have been assigned to something. And the 5th one is visible but not currently in use. So let's use that to display our URL data. I'll unlock the form. Actually, I don't need to do that yet. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. I click on the black and white waiter man. Let's think of it brings up a menu of fields. And we want to take and assign user-defined field 5. Notice the 5th row here. I want to assign that to URL. I click select. And we can look back behind here. I could see this happen in real time if I had enough screen space here for my capture. And there we see the URL field. We get quite a few calls saying, well, I set up my user-defined field and it always defaults to whatever I entered last time. I can't ever get it to clear out. Well, that's because this carry forward feature was used. That means whatever you type in the last QSO is going to automatically be put in for the next QSO. Sometimes that's useful, but most of the time it's not. We'll use it a little bit later, but for right now, for URL, we don't need that. It's not likely that we're going to work 2 stations in a row that have a URL, much less the same URL. So we'll leave that off. If you're ever in doubt about what to do with this field, just leave it off, but I think it'll be clear in a minute what it could be useful for. Okay, so there's my URL field. Notice it's kind of run off the form here. So now I click on my unlock button, and I right-click on the field that I want to modify. I'll drag the property window up in my capture area so you can see it. And right now it's set to 50 characters, which was the default that we set up in the database. I'm going to try maybe 25. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to try to get it nice and even with the outside here. The end of the comment field. So I'll go a little longer and I can use the mouse to do that. Okay. And let's line the label up too. I'll right click on URL and put the properties form up here so you can see it, but note that I don't, I can move it around with the pointy things here, or I can use the arrow buttons. And then I can click OK or press enter when I'm done. But most of the time, I don't leave. If it's just you want to adjust a field to the proper place, I just right click, use the arrow keys to move it around, press enter when done. That's all I need to do. Okay, now I can type in okay, excuse me here. We want to restart later. Do the automatic updates later. Okay. Bill Gates is omnipresent, it looks like. Okay, now notice I typed in more data than will fit in the display area of the field. It just scrolls sideways. Okay, I'll lock the form back. Notice it'll shrink back down to fit. And we get a lot of calls asking, well, I only have 5 user-defined fields. They're all used up. Where are the rest of them? The manual says that there's 20. And if you continue to read the manual, you'll see that indeed there are 20 user-defined fields per log form, but very few people are going to need 20 fields, or will have the screen big enough to display that many with everything else that Logic has that you'll probably want to get on your screen. But anyway, they're there. And if you have 3 or 4 monitors like Logic will support, it's no problem. So let's look for one of these other 15 fields, and let's put, say, our rig there, a field to log the rig that we're using to make the QSO. I unlock the form. Notice the work area expands to give me room to work. I can add more fields out here or drag stuff out of the way temporarily. It's just easier to work if I have a larger work area, and I can take the mouse and drag it even bigger. We come up here and we want to unhide a field. Drag this up in the capture area so you can see it. And there we see everything that's hidden. We have user field number 6. Click there, click unhide. And notice it's flashing up here. It appears on the screen. Usually a user-defined field will appear over on the right side someplace. You'll have to drag it to where you want its final destination to be. Notice that there's no label that's going to say rig yet, so let's unhide the label also. I look for label user 6. I double click here. There's my label. Note I don't have to have a label if it's you're really cramped for space and you don't have room to display the label, and you can remember what it is or think you can remember what it is. You don't need the label. Holding the mouse on top of it will give you a description of what the field does. A lot of people, right here we have frequency transmit next to frequency, so a lot of times people, just to declutter the screen, will hide that frequency TX label. Notice I just drag it up in the trash can. There, it's gone. And I come back here, and if I ever have a question as to what that is, I just put my mouse there. It tells me. Okay, so let's take our user-defined field number 6. Let's drag it down here. It's hard to get it precisely positioned with the mouse, especially with this video capture running. But I'll get it close, and then we'll fine-tune it later using another tool that Logic has. I just take and I right-click on the field in this little nifty window that we used before to set the size of the field. Also allows us to take the arrow, the little pointy finger things, or I can use the arrows on my keyboard to move it around. Click on OK, and it leaves it there. I can also do all this without using the little form. I just right-click. The little form popped up, but it's off of the capture area, so you can't see it. I use my arrow keys on the keyboard to take and move it around, put it where I want it, press Enter, and it's stuck there. Okay, we'll lock the form back. Notice it's going to shrink down to not leave a lot of wasted space where the work area was before. Click on the black and white Waiter Man button. Come down to field number 6. Okay. I want to come down to rig. And this is a case where we would want to, I can double click rather than hit select. It puts rig there for me in number 6. So this would be a case where we probably want the last value that we logged to get carried forward, because we'll probably be making a whole lot of QSOs on the same rig. So, we can set it once per operating session. It'll stay that way. If we change rigs, and we just select a new rig one time. So that's one case where it would be good to carry forward. Okay, a couple things to do. I'll fix this label so it looks pretty. And then we have one other thing to check. Drag it down there with the mouse. There, it's close enough for now. The other thing is the tab order. So as you go hit the tab key to jump from one field to the next, here I'll do it. Let me lock the form back just to illustrate. Notice I can choose the order that the cursor moves. Okay, notice that it jumped from county down to the mode field. Let me try that again. Yeah, so it went to county, then it went to mode. So the VE province, the URL, and the rig are kind of not working the way we'd like if we're going to tab through. It'll get up there eventually, but I kind of scrambled these beforehand so we could see that. But see how everything's out of order. What we can do is we'll unlock the form again, and we can set the order of these things. We click on this little tab order field changer thing here. I move it up so we can see it. The last good field was county, so we want VE province. See there, we went to comment to CQ zone, ITU zone, and county. We want to move VE province up underneath county. I want to move URL up underneath province, and let's see, it's way down here someplace, so I'll just move these up. And we probably want to put the we can fix the QSL sent and received fields too, but anyway, the trick here is just dragging everything to the order that you want it to be in. Got to do a good bit of scrolling, so I'll a little quicker to take two of them as we go here. So now it's going to go to rig, then it's going to jump to the mode field, to the frequency, to the band. So that's pretty much the way that we want it there. Notice the power and operator and contest ID should be down below the QSL sent received field. So we could either move them up or move operator or contest ID down. But for anyway, we'll just leave that for now. That's not really a problem in your version. That's set up properly on Logic 8 that's on the disk. Okay, note that this rig field, we can type anything we want in there. And suppose that we were, need to make it longer, obviously, but it'd be nice to have one of these little drop-down lists like we have for VE province or county for that. So let's go set that up. We go back to Tools and Set Up and Log Fields. We'll type a G to get the rig field. We could just page down through the browse field here, use next, but it's the quick way to do it. Let's make it wider. And notice here we have edit using list table. The list table, you remember, from hopefully reading the manual or the help, has a list of all the valid DXCC countries, a list of all of the states, a list of continents, counties, that type thing. But we can also add non-awards lists here as well. Typically we get to the list form with Tools and Setup and List of valid values. There it goes. But in this case we can just click on the list form button right here. And let's get rig. Make sure we don't already have it in there. It's not there. Also, we can look in our little scrollable list over here. We don't have rig. So let's add a new record. The name of the field's rig. And the value is going to be ICOM 735. Okay, and let's add another one in here. Let's put in 10 tech. I don't know if that's spelled with or without a dash, but anyway. And let's not forget my new ICOM 7800. Yeah, right. Okay, so I have a list of 3 rigs, and I might want to, I can add as many rigs as I want to here, but that's enough for now. I can just go ahead and close this form. It'll save for me automatically. Let me close this. Oh, I got to turn on edit using list table. Notice it says on list table, it's not non-edited. We'll get into non-edited, what that means exactly in the next segment of video, which is going to be on awards tracking. Okay, so I go ahead and we close this form. Okay, we've got to close the log form so it can read the changes that we made. Okay, go to Forms, Log, and I'm going to just open the main log form again. For any potential customers watching this video, logic is not really that slow. The video capture here is a real hog. Normally everything just flashes on the screen. Download the demo, install it, you'll see what I mean. So there I have the list of rigs. And there's a long description field after it. So note that I could put, you know, to tell some more information about the rig if I wanted to. Just like here for DXCC, I have a description of the field. If I can get it open, well, I think everything's frozen up. Oh, there we go. Okay. A little pause in my video capture there, and everything comes to life. Okay. So there we have our drop-down list. So in this section, to summarize, you have seen how to... Oh yeah, one other thing on user-defined fields. So far we've seen how to manipulate user-defined fields. You know how to do just about anything you need to do as far as adding new fields to your log form. Just information on how the data is stored internally. You don't really need to know this, but you can look at the raw user-defined fields by selecting the user fields form. And the reason I mention this is more than something that you're going to actually use. It's just a lot of people open that form thinking that's the form they have to use for, you know, they have to open if they want to use user-defined fields. No, that's not true at all. It's just this little area down here that shows you the raw user-defined field data. So notice that this will vary from QSO to QSO depending on which user-defined fields are logged. Sometimes it's good if you you know, import data and you know, having trouble with user-defined fields is more for troubleshooting than anything, although I probably haven't myself used this form in over a year. But anyway, you see it in the log form menu, just so you know what it is. It's for diagnostic. It's not something that you need to use for using Logic's user-defined field features. And so that's all for this section. I thank you for sitting here with me. This video is copyright 2006 by Personal Database Applications.